Okay, we're recording. Would you like some coffee or some juice or some pastries? Yeah.
We all bet in here that you wouldn't make it.
Well, thank you all for coming in. We're recording, so I'll send out the video and the PowerPoint. Oh, come on in. Come on in. Come on in. Treasurer's office. Would you guys like some coffee or some pastries or some juice? We haven't started yet. I was speaking more to Brittany. Okay. So this is recorded. We'll send out the video on YouTube and the PowerPoint slides too. I just want to touch base on a couple different things real quick. These are things you guys probably already know or may have an idea of, but some background stuff as well that Heather really wanted to share out. So because of your time, we'll go ahead and we'll just get started. So you guys go ahead and take it away.
All right. You guys all know me. I'm Heather Hall. I see a lot of familiar faces. I've done recruitment estimates for you guys. I work with the treasurer's office, and we've got Scott Yamamoto, real estate manager. We're David for setting this up. So recruitment estimates. So you guys probably are familiar with this form that I do send to you guys when you request for estimates. You cannot find the recruitment estimates on the tax bill. I know a lot of sometimes people will say, hey, I see CAUV recruitment on my tax bill. I'm not receiving CAUV. Well, they don't understand that recruitment is, what you have to pay back. So I said, it's a good thing you see a 0 on your tax bill. That means you're not removed. So these estimates, typically for just a straight sale, it'll take me about a day or two to get to you guys if you need recoupment estimates. If it's a split, it'll take a little longer. I do need a copy of that, the survey. That way that I know where that estimate's coming from, because we'll get into why I need that in a little bit. So these amounts go on a DTE form that I'll go over to shortly when they're actually transferring that property. These are just an estimate only. It does not mean that that's exactly how much it's going to be. I know sometimes it'll change given on the split, the acreage might change, the amounts might change. And also it gives you an idea just, for that new buyer, that grantee, to figure out how much it might cost if they do come out of the program. A lot of times too, I'll get checks sometimes from, especially it's a lot of title companies that are kind of not from around here that don't understand CAUV. They'll actually ask for their recoupment estimates. They'll send a check and try to pay at the treasurer's office. Well, a lot of times is if it's a split, especially that split had went through in our conveyance room, but that child parcel has not been created yet. So if they try to pay on the recoupment on the child parcel, it's going to go on the parent parcel, and it's really easier just to hold on to that check until that recoupment is actually added. I've even had times where recoupment might have been paid, but the parcel never came out of CAUV because I wasn't notified. And that DTE that I'll show you does help give an indication as to what that property owner is going to want to do with the program. So here's a complicated split that happened. I think it was last year. The reason we need this is because CAUV, the savings is based off of the soil on your property. And that's where they have that tax savings. So I really have to know where that split is taking place and what type of soils I have to move with it. So I need to know where those lines are, what soils are on there, and that helps me try to figure out roughly how much those estimates are going to be. We have to figure out sometimes if there's a split, and if I can talk to the property owner before they split, it kind of helps me. Sometimes they're not sure. They might split off 5 acres of woods and not know that those woods now, because it had over 10 acres of cropland, they split the woods out to somebody else, but those woods aren't qualified now. So we have to really, if I do find that out, I'll try to let you guys know, hey, this might not qualify for CAUV. Maybe here's some ways that we can get it to qualify. But that's kind of the reason why we need a copy of the survey. It helps me do that. Sometimes it can be complicated, especially, with lots of splits. It can take quite a while. Okay, so kind of what recoupment means to the grantor and grantee. So it's really based off of the buyer and seller as to who's going to be responsible for that recoupment. That recoupment follows the parcel, not the person. So that's a lot of times why we want the grantee to know that it may or may not come out, just because they're aware that they're the one that is going to be responsible for that recoupment. It's added to the next year's tax bill. So even if you transfer a property at the beginning of the year, we cannot add recoupment until the end of the year, really in about December, and it'll show up in next year's tax bill. And they'll have first half and second half to go ahead and pay that. And then after it's removed from the program, then it'll be taxed at a normal market value. So some of the transfers, like the girls see why we need a DTE Form 102, it's really for any transfer. I really cannot think of any time where we kind of don't need one. I'll need to know, this tells me if the acreage has changed, the ownership has changed, because I need to give them a new application if that property has changed hands, because they need to now qualify for the program on their own. So kind of any kind of sale, add or remove, a split, a new survey, parcel combination, we'll grant one, we will need a DTE 102 form. And so here's the DTE 102 form. So, you know, the first section needs to be completed. You know, grantor, grantee, the address, parcel number, CAUV number, usually the girl can get that for you in the math room. This section right here is what we like to have added, because a lot of times they might not want to continue with the program. So them checking whether they want to keep, remove, or unsure really helps me, because they're aware of it's going to come out or it might not, they want to qualify, and I will send you paperwork. These amounts here is where you guys would take that recoupment estimate form, put on the DTE. Sometimes you guys attach it, which is fine. Down here is where we need it signed, dated, and notarized by grantor and grantee. Here's some examples. You know, sometimes the grantor can't sign for it, so we do allow, we like grantor and grantee to both sign it themselves so they're aware of it. But if you can't, title company or attorney can sign as a representative for the grantor, and only attorneys, if you are representing both, then you can sign for both grantor and you. So after the purchase, I get that DTE. Usually it takes about a month or so for just a straight sale for me to get this new ag app packet out. With splits and combos and new surveys, that can take a while because it has a few more steps to go through before it gets to me. So this is kind of the welcome sheet. So if you have new people buying, they want to continue, what do I do next? So you kind of tell them, give me some time, because I get that original DTE 102, and then I send out this welcome packet. So it kind of names out why they're receiving it, when to respond. We usually give them kind of a lot of time, because sometimes they see on that new application, you only have a certain deadline where you can apply. So it'll give the parcel and the acres. This one had a lot. Excuse me. And then it'll also have a new application attached to it as well. Now, a lot of times the new owners might see, so down here, it says only sign and date this section if you're not going to continue with the program. Maybe they were unsure of the CAUV on that DTE form. They got their application, and now they're like, I don't want to qualify. So they would sign and date that, which that would notify me if they don't want to qualify. We'll send out a removal letter. So here are just some basic qualifications. I know you guys probably might know some of this already on how to qualify. So does it contain greater than 10 acres of qualified cropping? So if you have over 10 acres of commercial land that you're farming and you're selling, you could qualify for CAUV. So if you have less than 10 acres, well, do you have more acres in woods? You could get a forest management plan and you could qualify. If not, you can grow 2,500 a year. So we do have people with less than 10 acres of cropland that do qualify only with those acres. Don't meet the income requirement, you don't qualify for CAUV. And sometimes, like I said, with some of those splits, that's where we come into problems where that person might have split out acres, not going to qualify. We will try what we can do. It is not black and white. It's kind of a case by case, property by property basis, whether they're going to qualify or not. I'll try to work with them to continue to qualify. This is kind of our timeline, just so you guys kind of know what we do. So the first Monday in January is the first time to apply for CAUV as a new owner. Now, if the property transfers, it's already on CAUV, they can apply at any time because the property is already on that program. Mid-January is when we send out renewals, just to make sure that they still want to continue to qualify for CAUV, they'll receive those. Before the first Monday in March is the deadline to apply as a new owner for CAUV. And then, if they've been removed, March 31st is a hard deadline for board of revision. They want to contest to get the property back on CAUV. They can do so, by March 31st. June is typically when we do inspections for, out in the field. Sometimes we do, I think it was February, we went out and did maple syrup, just because it's easier to see the bags, the buckets, the tubing. We did just go out and do grapes. I think it was a couple weeks ago. It's easier to see that they're trimmed. But most of our inspections are done in June. And then September to October, we usually send out certified letters saying, hey, you guys are being removed. And we'll usually give them about like a month, to kind of get a hold of us if something changes, or maybe we miss something, or they need documentation. And that was it, quick and sweet. You guys have any questions?
Was there anything different, that you may have had an understanding, or kind of a quick overview we wanted to give you on that transfer aspect of the equipment piece too? You guys know our process in terms of equipment, but sometimes property owners want to pay, for example, and that can kind of, hopefully now you see a little bit of why on the back end. If you pay, it may actually harm the property owner, or there may be some confusion with those check aspects.
Any situations that anybody's run into that caused a problem that maybe we can sort through and discuss?
I don't know of any situations, but I do have a question.
Mhm.
Reasoning behind allowing the attorney to sign it as a grantor and a grantee. So that's what I don't believe that I have ever come across that situation where the attorney was allowed to sign as grantor and grantee. And if I remember correctly, I don't know if you were here yet, the whole CAUV form and everything changed, I believe, under Roger, correct,
I
Heather?
think so.
For the most part.
Yeah.
I know typically back, back when I started years ago, it wasn't even a big deal if you signed the form. And then I believe what came out with Roger was, wait a second, we want the grantee to acknowledge that this, excuse me, is on there. So that's when the form changed. Well, I think you changed the form actually, but they start requiring the grantee period to sign that form as an acknowledgement from a notary, especially at our close. So I don't think I've ever seen where an attorney signed both, but what is the reasoning in allowing that? Because in my opinion, the attorney is not the grantee. And if the whole reason for the form is for the grantee, the new purchaser of the property, to acknowledge the program and the fact that they may have to pay anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000, depending on how big the property is, why would that be allowed?
It's preferred to have the grantor and the grantee actually sign it for the exact reason, Rich, so that they acknowledge that this is what's happening. There are times where we get into the owner is deceased, where an attorney is filing and we have to allow that. So it does say grantor, grantee, or representative. We would really like to have the actual people sign it. In all honesty, that's the perfect situation.
So are we talking a situation in which, like, excuse me, father has passed away, heirs of the children, properties going from there to there?
Yeah.
We typically also deal with a lot of sales out of the estate of
Sure.
that person. So in that instance, that I guess those are the situations, examples that I'm questioning, because your grantee would be a disinterested party, individual entity from the actual estate itself. So in that case, you would still require the purchaser of that property to sign, not.
Well, and I, as an attorney, I'm not sure I would represent them. To me,
Yeah.
that's a conflict. So if you had two attorneys, which would be very unusual, but to me, it makes more sense that at a closing, the grantee would acknowledge the CAUV, and that's how you get through it. Excuse me, and in the state situation, obviously you have a administrator, executor, fiduciary. Who would be able to sign
Right.
that as well, so, yeah, I don't see the attorney thing coming up because as attorney, I would
Yeah.
never represent both, to me as a conflict.
Yeah, I think I remember this instance. It was Casey O'Brien did both. But there was some type of issue with, deceased and, moving it over and then moving it again. So I think it's very rare if.
Yeah, we
this may
don't
have
see
been
them
more-
very often,
Right.
but yeah, because the reason we wanted the grantee to sign is because there was a lot of times I would have the owner, she split off qualifying acres and she came to me, this was more than 5 years ago probably. And she's like, well, I got a recoupment because it didn't qualify. She had about 5 acres of woods and I'm like, here's the original, like you sign this. If somebody didn't explain it to you, I'm sorry, but it can be a lot, like Rich said, I mean, the most I think I've seen in recoupment was $24,000 in some cases for recoupment. So we're just trying to hopefully help the new property owner or the one that's selling it, just to be aware, because it can be a lot. We're just trying to help them in any way that we can, and then it's good for them to know what they're getting into.
Are there any questions on the split process in terms of how that works with parent parcel? I know sometimes there's questions over where the home, for example, stays in terms of parcel address or in terms of value, for example, where the CAUV value to. Is that all pretty?
I think I would like to add to that. I know everyone is very eager to pay those taxes when we have a split, but in talking about the parent parcel and the baby parcel, it's so important to wait until the new parcel is created and the taxes can be applied in the right location. An example is just yesterday, I had to submit for 2 separate refunds. They were about $2,500 a piece from 2021, where it was paid before the new parcel was created. They were applied to the parent parcel. And once that new parcel is created, that parcel is deactivated. And now I'm left with parcel number that doesn't generate anything. So I can't see money that's sitting there. I can't see a refund that should be available. And this is on 2 separate parcels because, we created this new baby parcel. So the money is not there because we jumped the gun and we paid those taxes before that parcel was created. And so now we're searching for this money somewhere. And I have to now call the auditor's office and have them help me find this parcel, find this money, so that we can get it refunded or get it applied to the correct place. And I would like to say that, okay, that one where we're refunding it is an anomaly, but it is not uncommon that we're receiving checks from mortgage companies or title agencies that have the parent parcel on it. And so we're applying that to the wrong place, where if we just take a pause and we wait for this new parcel to be created, we can apply that money to the right location.
Which makes total sense, but the first thing the client is gonna say, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, is how long is that gonna take? So can you give us a ballpark? And I'm not trying to rush you, I'm just saying, when the client asks, because they want it done. They want it done right now, they want it done yesterday.
They want certainty that they're not gonna see this later.
Right.
When the tax bill is generated, so for me to walk through a transaction and say, wait 6 months, that's generally completely untenable to the people that I'm talking to. That may be process for you. I'm just saying on my end, none of the clients want to do that.
But I totally
I
understand what
understand.
you're saying, I agree with you,
And one thing I can guarantee is they are gonna see it later if we don't wait
Yeah.
for that parcel.
So do you have an idea? Can we just say, okay, we need to wait 30 days and we'll check on it? Can we wait, does anybody have a general idea of how long that may take so that we can pass that along?
There's a lot of moving parts.
I mean, the triennial will take longer if we're on hold.
Yeah.
The
So
regular-
because we're in a triennial year, we cannot do any parcel maintenance right now, none. So until the new values are applied, when new values are applied, then we can do our splits and
We're gonna get new
combinations.
soil values.
We have new
That-
soil values as well, yeah. So being a triennial update, there's a lot of moving pieces parts this year. So
When it's not on an average year though, on a normal year, you have the time frame.
couldn't tell you, depends on a lot of things.
Might be months, depends on when we get stuff from Denise over at engineers.
Right.
and-
The engineers have to update the parcel map. And then, it has to go through the appraisal department, CAUV has to look at it. I mean, it's not instant. And don't forget, everything that we do is as of January 1st of each year. So, and quite honestly, while everybody's sitting in this room, we are contemplating changing the way that we do splits and combinations to be like other counties. Other counties hold splits, let's say calendar 23. Everything that happens during calendar 23 is done for tax year 1/1/24. Whereas right now, we're doing splits in the current year, and quite honestly, that causes issues as well.
What are the issues with doing it? I'm just generally, what's the conversation around doing it?
So according to the law, we have to do everything as of January 1st. So if you're not doing it that way, and a lot of counties don't do it that way. I worked in Jaga, we did it the same way here. When I worked in Lake County, we did change the split process so that it was as of January 1st. But then you do all of your work at the same time.
You're doing all the splits and combos.
Correct.
At the end of the year before.
So at the end of the year, you grab all 12 months worth, all 365 days worth. Well, it is, but it isn't. Depends on how you do it. So if I said, the way I set it up in Lake was, as the splits were coming in, they were going to the appraisers after tax map got done with them. The appraisers would then write up the property record cards with the data on it, so if we would hold it for just the data entry piece. So then after we collected all 365 days worth of splits, January 1st comes, okay, we roll a tax year, data entry gets done. You've got all these new parcels created, and now you can take all your permits for your new houses, attach them to those the correct parcels. Because when we're doing splits in the current year and you have new construction being added, guess where the permit goes? It goes to the parent parcel. Now the appraiser in the field, who doesn't work for us directly, is going, where does this, oh, here's the house, here's the address. Does the house get put on the right parcel? The permits don't follow the permit, the right parcel. So it's cleaner. Right now, we have to cut splits off in November. We cut splits off in November. So your November and December splits are actually done in the next year already. Because we had to cut up. It's kind of a mess, to be honest with you. So doing it so that you have the entire year's worth of splits done, and then you add all your permits in, and you get everything on the correct parcel. Now you're cleaner going out. But that does cause an issue. You know, you've got to escrow some things, right? You're not paying into immediately.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally understand the kind of dilemma that, you know, I guess I had a situation where they bought a split piece of property and then they wanted to do something with the split. Well, I have to tell them I can't see, I don't have a parcel, I can't
Correct.
see anything. You know, nothing's created. When's it gonna be created? Well, I mean, I know they cut off splits in November, they try to do them per year, could be 30 days, could be 90, I have no idea.
Right.
I mean,
Well,
and
we try
maybe
to,
there's no solution to that.
and we try to get the tax map is always going to be up to date. So when you look online, the parcel's going to be there.
I mean,
It just
wasn't-
doesn't physically exist in our CAMA system.
No, I understand that. I'm just saying, when I looked at the map,
Yeah.
it wasn't there yet.
Yeah.
And maybe it was 30 days out, maybe, I mean, I'm not being critical. just-
It depends on the backlog at tax map.
But it's always created in IAS immediately, correct? So we'll still, because I know typically when we have stuff, and we have stuff all the time, that you create a split and within 60 days it sells again.
Yeah,
Or you
it
have-
happens.
Or you have a
So-
T property that he creates 10 splits or 5 splits,
Yep.
all 20 acres.
Sure,
and-
you can,
And then immediately, 3 weeks later.
it does it
you know,
again.
He has all 10 of them sold.
Yep.
So we come in, or our examiners come in and get a copy of what is listed off IAS.
Yep.
And we'll use in our commitments the mother parcel, and then we use the newly
Sure.
created split parcel that has no value. So that
Yep.
will still.
That's still a state. So just so you guys know, I don't know if you understand this or not, but we work in 3 tax years at the same time
Oh, yeah.
every day. So we're working in 2022 because that's the tax collection year. That's also the appeal year. We're working in 2023 because that's the current year. And we're working in 2024 for those transfers because that's as of January 1st to 24, all those transactions that occurred during calendar year 23. So it's a bit of a challenge for the employees. We have to remember to change the tax years. But like the transfer department, they just work in 24. The appraisal department works in 23. You know, and then the real estate department, we jog back and forth between all 3 years.
There's times I'll go back to 3, because if it's a split. with
And you got
recruitment, I have
recruitment.
to do skills, not only for 23, but 22, 21, 20, so it's crazy.
That split conversation, we would have many dialogues.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that would not,
Yeah, that's a
that's not,
that's a 3 hour meeting.
yes. Just to go through, but that's just kind of something.
I do have one question, sorry to interrupt. How many of those checks that you see coming in, you think, are with regards to recoupment checks coming from escrow officers and sales and title companies that are creating the situation like you're supposed to? Okay. And that might be something, and like I said, not to get off subject, that might be something for you to think about, maybe you to think about as well. And maybe brainstorming and getting in with the title companies or having another meeting with the title companies as to how that is affecting what you guys got going on. Cause I know, I don't deal with escrow at all. And, but I do know that there are times where our filers, cause we actually have a person that's just what she does. She's a filer. We'll come over and bring CAUV checks and she'll come back and she'll say, they won't accept this. She doesn't know. Because she doesn't know that anyway, and the escrow officer is like, well, what do you mean they won't accept it? Now, I would think, I don't know, that it's been the same way forever, that we probably held those CAUV checks, recoupment checks until a certain time and then turn those over to the treasurer's office. But I know that I have heard and seen instances probably within the last 6 months to a year, maybe not 5, but maybe 3. And 3 obviously is too many, especially if it creates what it just created. So that might be something that, I don't know if you guys would be willing to do something like that. I'm sure Tim, Todd, I'm sure they would be very interested in hearing, okay, what can we do? Because I know everything through our business stream. So 100%.
I was thinking that one thing that we in our offices could do is that on David's end, before his staff deactivates the parent parcel, they could look and refund and see if there was any money sitting there. And then let my office know, hey, you need to move that. The issue with that is that I have to have written permission to move the money. Because if I receive a check or I was with a coupon or with a parcel number on it, and it's a parent parcel number, then the only option that I have is to refund it unless the title agency or whoever the issuer of the check is gives me a written consent to move it from one parcel to the other, even if the intended parcel is very clear that it was the new parcel. But that is definitely something that we could do to make this easier and have money not lost. And I say lost, it's not truly lost, it's just sitting out there on an unintended parcel until a very angry taxpayer gets a tax bill.
Well, that same angry, and I guess where I'm coming, is that same angry taxpayer comes to our office as well. So I definitely think it would be something that the powers that be at these companies would definitely probably want to get streamlined, especially with our escrow officers. I mean, I think now there's 52 employees, probably 20 of them are escrow people, maybe 25. So we have escrow officers, we have escrow assistants. I'm not exactly sure who is in charge of that aspect of cutting checks and blah, 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 but we also have an accounting department as well that's cutting checks. So if those checks are being cut and just put in a bin, and quite frankly, they shouldn't be for another 6 months, how I'm sure those guys would be open to sitting down with you guys and brainstorming on trying to figure out how everybody can get that process down pat so it doesn't create what you had going on and so it doesn't create people putting checks in our filer as nothing and her coming back or him coming back and saying, hey, they won't accept this, and the escrow officer saying, why not?
Well, we had
So-
another instance too with actually title professionals. This was a couple years ago where there was a property that was split. And I guess they wanted to come out of the program. I didn't know that. They took the recoupment, they ended up paying on it. Well, way down the road, we find out that they were never removed from the program. So they're still receiving CAUV. Property is already sold. The gentleman that's got the recoupment, he's got a surplus, so he doesn't have to pay taxes for a few years. And there was, I think, no way
after I talked to, it was when Marie was still working, she was helping me with it.
Yeah.
Just to try to get that money back, so then I feel bad because that money was put on the parcel. I wasn't aware that's where that DTE to mark, like, if you want it removed, because I'm not gonna know if they wanna continue until I try to reach out to them. So that's another reason too, where it got paid on there and it sat on there, and then there's no way that we can keep that money.
I think the form's great, in my opinion. You know, making the customer, whoever it is, put a check mark wherever it is. I mean, typically in your real estate closings, your closers try and explain as much as they possibly can. I know that's probably a horrible thing to say in a meeting full of 100 people, but most of us in here are probably homeowners and have sat through one of those, you know, stacks of paper that, you know, if you actually read everything, that it was a lot of time, but.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think they try and explain that CAUV form as much as they possibly can. I know that I do some of what we call title onlys, and I try and explain to the people now, this is a big deal. Because this dollar amount over here means if you don't farm, this is being attached to your taxes in the years coming. So, you know, but you will then also have to prove that you're farming, you know. So I think I've never heard anything wrong with the form, you know, even, you know, when the form changed and the grantees had to sign, obviously there's grumbles, but, you know, because it's an extra step, but it really is. So, and that was 10 years.
On the recruitment side, I'd be curious what you guys do in like Lake Geauga, some of the counties, so we can definitely converse and discuss.
And I don't know those answers to that. I couldn't tell you. With regards, I know they have the forms, you know, I think we all in here know, Scott knows as well too, because he's worked for multiple counties. I've worked in multiple counties, but not necessarily as a filer. I have filed many things in Lake County, Geauga County, other counties, but typically dealing with that stuff on a daily basis, I couldn't tell. I know the CAUV form is a standard form. I mean, a lot of counties require it. So you get into some of your more rural counties, I'm sure it's probably even maybe a little more strict because of the amount of farmland, but.
Yeah, I just, as a person, rather than as a title person, I can understand some owners being afraid that if they didn't get those taxes paid, they would be charged penalties because it wasn't paid. Is that a possibility? I mean, I want to have all these taxes paid, so I don't have it on my mind that I have to pay taxes or that I have to pay a penalty because I didn't pay much. I think maybe people might have that.
You have to have a parcel to assess the taxes to. So if the parcel hasn't been created yet, then the taxes
Then
don't
it's,
exist.
okay, well, I'm just, as somebody who might not know.
So I think that's the key there, is if the parcel hasn't been created yet, then there are no taxes assessed to it. And that's the problem with receiving that payment too soon, is because then it's gonna be applied to the parent parcel, there's no taxes to apply it to. So now it gets kicked over and it sits in refund. And when it's sitting in refund, it's out of sight, out of mind. It's not on our mail screen. It's not on our tax summary. It's not in our payment screen. We just can't see it. And that's how it gets to be the forgotten money until somebody questions it.
Are you guys able to see the refunds? Is there something where somebody can look at a screen in your office?
In the auditor's office, not really. We
I
don't
mean,
look at
so
the,
nobody can see this? I guess my question.
there is a text, yeah, there is, but that's not where we normally live. In the
True,
auditor's
we have to
office.
go
I guess
looking for
my
it.
simple question is there something within your camera?
Like a widget to
Or-
kind
or
of show
tax.
like, hey, there's a refund on this parcel, like.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
dashboard or
my,
something.
because from the.
Yeah,
from
but you know how many there would
taxpayer
be? And it would be for all
standpoint, if they
reasons,
know you're
not just
farming,
received
they're
fee.
putting, get the recoupment figures, they're putting in, they're going through a title company. All the money's getting spent, and then they're done with it. They think the taxes are gonna get taken care of, paid, title companies walking through, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And their hands are clean, they haven't done it, there's nothing more for them to do. So when they come back later, I understand this is just a process issue, but maybe we gotta figure out between title companies and offices here. I'm just wondering, can anybody see this information?
So
Or can we make it available for your offices, never mind the consumer, but just the offices, so they have some way to.
So the answer to that is yes, there is a very specific button inside IAS that says tax refund, and it can be viewed. The issue comes back to if that money is paid on the parent parcel and it's sitting in refund, then we have to have a written request from the issuer of the check to move it to the correct person. I'm not permitted to just move money from one person to another. So if we look in there and we see it, then we still have to reach out to you, get written request or written permission to move it from that parent parcel before it's deactivated to the other parcel. So, I mean, it just creates another step in the process when you can just wait and pay those taxes once that new parcel is created and the taxes are assessed.
Well, and really then, I guess it's, then it comes back to what you're saying, Rich, it's just a question between getting the
When they're
title
issuing
company
checks.
on the same page with you folks, because from the customer standpoint, they pay the money, it goes through escrow, and then it's a question of how long you will hold the money, you know, getting some process to when they can apply it, et cetera.
One, I think sometimes once we close the deal, deal's closed.
Yeah, well, that's.
It goes to the accounting department.
Right.
You know, they issue off the checks and they
Nobody
will.
wants to sit on this money for, you know, months on end.
Do most title companies collect these recoupments? I work for a title company, and when we get those estimated recoupments, we don't collect them in escrow. We let the buyer know that these will be applied to your taxes. Is that the wrong way to be doing it?
Is that something though too that comes into your tax prorations? Because you're prorating, because you're always a
We
year
prorate
behind, so therefore.
Taxes for 2022, because on that value, because you don't know what it's gonna be for 2023. It's just an estimated, and we let our clients know that credit that we're giving the buyer for the estimated taxes, that's just estimated because there's no way for us to know what the taxes are.
But do you
for
include that
that
CAUV recoupment figure in that prorated fee?
We don't. And typically too, if it does
And
come
I'm not
out of
escrow, so I'm
CUV.
trying to, you know,
So I don't know if our office is doing it incorrectly, and if we should be collecting it, well, we don't, we just let the buyer know, these are the estimated. Fees that'll be
and that
put
might
on
be the
your
way to
taxes.
do it too. I'm not an escrow, so I have to ask.
Yeah, cause with the recoupment too, that's if it was removed, and then you almost kind of add in what I give you for like, if I gave you recoupment estimates now, what you had for 2022. You kind of take roughly what you saved in 2022 and add that into your taxes going forward, because that's what you save for the year. So if you're looking at how much they save on CUV, you add in that top amount and the recoupment, and then that's what you would have to pay.
If you're being removed,
Yeah,
but if they're staying in, then you're right.
Doesn't matter.
yeah.
So question real quick. So I know you guys deal in IAS when you create parcels. You guys also deal in IAS or have access to the IAS if you live in IAS, okay? When do you guys consider a child parcel created? 100%. So I hear until this is created, until this is created, from my standpoint, you know, me being the title guy, when I walk in and we do a transfer, you're creating it.
Yes.
Is there a different requirement on you guys' end? Because it is created, but you wait until tax values are assigned to that parcel and certified before you guys consider that parcel created and available to assess funds?
That would be when the taxes, so you have to have a value assigned to it, and then that value, so the abstract goes to the state in November of each year. So the abstract that goes this November will be as of January 1st of 23. So any splits that have occurred during calendar year 23 are really for 24.
So essentially in that next year, when taxes are certified tax values are certified, that's when you guys consider that created. That's kind of where I'm going with that, is that.
As far as the tax bill goes, yes.
Correct. And being able to apply those CEUV recoupment funds to that parcel, that's when.
They have to make, the auditor's office, I have different rights or privileges in IAS than they do. And they have different rights or privileges than I do. So there are things when they're working on creating this parcel, they can see the work that they're doing. But I can't visualize this parcel until they activate it. So I don't know anything that's going on until it's actually.
Has a value on it.
Yep.
The treasurer's office doesn't see it until it has a certified value on it. Correct.
which is December, January, February of that tax year. Okay.
So, and I don't know if it's the right way, but I love what she's doing. Cause that means that nothing's gonna be applied.
Of course, and that honestly might be the way we do it. Like I said, I'm speaking from a non-escrow employee, and I have no idea how they do it. But I do know there has been instances where our people have come back with recoupment checks that they said the treasurers won't accept. And I mean, I knew why, because I think I probably came over one time and asked. But I guess what I'm trying to figure out is now we have a check out there. You know what I mean? And I know Jim and Phil and Todd, that's.
Well, that's really the
good
problem,
for
is
them,
nobody
so
wants to
they're
sit on this
trying to
money.
figure that
You
out.
guys have nowhere to put it. Title companies don't want to sit on it. The taxpayers think they get through closing, they're done. These guys are handling the funds, you guys are gonna apply them, et cetera. And so nobody's, everybody's got their hands up like, hey, we can't, we're all kind of stuck to some degree, and that's where you just gotta get those guys, these folks.
Well, and that's why I mean, that's why I guess I said to you guys, maybe, bringing that point up with those guys or even the title companies or title people to try and everybody get on the same page.
If you're able, speak with your escrow folks or speak with Jim, see kind of what their thoughts are. We're happy to meet with them.
Yeah.
So we want to have the best result for the taxpayer. Maybe have another big discussion with more. You guys are our most responsive companies and people. So more than likely you're not even, the issue. It's probably.
And rest assured, we have had conversations of how do we fix this?
So we're open to ideas. Well, we want to be cognizant of your time, is it's 8:51. So any other questions?
Real quick, Heather, you said you send out a new ag app once the property transfers to the new owner on their own.
Yes, it'll take some time. Like I said, straight sales are pretty easy, about a month. I'll send out a new ag application. Splits are a little longer just because of the process. I wait till the folks work on it in the back. But I will send them a new ag application, so hey, it's on CUV, here's the application. They can sign if they want to remove it. Now, there are incidences where they only have non-qualified acres, so I will send a removal letter. They still have time to contact me.
I'd like to kick around the idea, do I want to just provide the new app when I know there's going to be, if I'm on the buyer side of the transaction, I just want to tell them, hey, I know this has got CUV. And generally, I'm gonna just talk to them about CUV. But do I really want to give them the app, or if you're just gonna send it to them, I'll just say, hey, wait, mail for one.
What we're trying to do is we're trying to establish that rapport with that new owner. This is what the program is, this is what the program rules are. We want to have these personal interactions with the owner so that they understand completely what's the ramifications that come off, and we can talk to them about all those kinds of things. We want to have those conversations with you. We want to be in contact. That's really the best situation. It really is.
And the application's okay, but like in a split, they go to pay it, I can't, the person's not created yet, so I can't put anything into the system yet, so,
So
but
I mean, it
yeah.
might just be easier it's certainly easier for me to say, well, hey, hear from the auditor's
Yep.
office. See, you get
Exactly.
an application,
Yep.
et cetera.
Yes.
Yeah, let us do that work for you.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. Like I said, this has been recorded. It